Cedric, for just sparing your time to be with us today. I'm excited about the conversation that we are going to have. So Cedric is a sales, business development, and program management professional. Do you just want to quickly maybe say hi to the audience that we have today, Cedric?
Yeah, sure. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's motivating to be called out to to this session, and I'm hoping that I'll be able to answer all the questions you may have. Hi, everybody.
Thank you.
Give a
Thank you
shout
so
out in your comments. If you're watching from Facebook, just give a shout out and drop the name of the country where you've logged in from. If you are on Zoom, do the same thing, please, so that we get to know how this culture change is really going to be about.
Yes, thank you, thank you. It is, like I said earlier, it is an honor to have you and everyone who's joining us on all streams that we are streaming live on, and those that are still going to watch on YouTube. Thank you so much for taking time to be with us today. We are grateful. So Cedric, I know you have a lot of background from the Oracle company, but my first question to you today is that who are you and what has been your entrepreneurial journey? Because I've known you largely to be an intrapreneur more than an entrepreneur. What has been your journey this far?
It's interesting you asked that question. In any job interview, that's one of the first questions that they actually bring on the board and on table for people to actually just say, you know what, put a balance to that. So I'm going to try and talk about the trick behind your question, just so it may be able to help out one person or another on this call, or whoever is going to watch. But basically, the question "Who are you?" is is a demand of two things. Um, the trap behind that question is: can you put a balance in your life? Can you relate to your personal life and your work life? So if you are able to actually put a balance to that, then you've answered the question very well. So I'll try to answer it this way. Who am I? My name is Cedric Tsiga, Zimbabwean, and I have over 20 years experience in the sales, business development, and project and product management, through which in the last 20 plus years, I've earned quite um, a ridiculously great amount of education. One thing that I would probably say before I talk about who I am is what my father once told me as a child. I graduate, and on my graduation, he then says, "Son, the world is waiting for you. It's time to continue learning." And that's what my 20 years has really been about. They've really been about identifying who I am, identifying where I want to go, where I want to be, and why I want to be there. So I'm a family man. Um, I have four children, and I try to be involved in their lives as much as I can. So I'm more a friend to them before I am a parent. Uh, and it's been a blessing that God continues to bless me. I'm born in a Christian home, um, with Christian values. Is how I've really been raised. And over the years, I've worked in technology, and that's where my background really is. So I've worked for technology companies, providing solutions for organizations that really are looking for, becoming better in the solutions and services that they actually deliver to their customers. So my job is really to really bridge the gap between the business and operations.
Okay, interesting. Interesting. Um, so would you define yourself as an intrapreneur or an entrepreneur?
So in 1998, that's when I finished my O level exams. And while I was waiting for my results to come out, funny enough, I went to ABC auctions in Zimbabwe,
Mhm.
And while there, I bought 10 computers, and this was from money that I had saved while I was in school.
Mhm.
So I bought 10 computers and started off an internet cafe, popularly known in a location in Narara called Chitumbiza.
Mhm.
It's at Chitumbiza Town Center that's owned by Old Mutual,
Mhm.
if it's still the case. Um, so I started operating in business while I was waiting for my O-level results. But what really gave me that idea is when you are in boarding school, you normally wake up very early to study, shower, go and eat, then get ready for school. And when school finished, what basically happened is I started looking out for, because I'd wake up early, but yeah, those days, unlike today, TV would start at a certain hour, end at a
Mhm.
certain hour.
Mhm.
Then at some point it started having morning sessions, morning shorts.
Mhm.
So I was watching this morning, and I found what is and what became a gift to me. Junior Chamber International.
Mhm.
Uh, I saw a guy called Donald Charumbira, who was talking about, he was the chapter president at that time, and
Mhm.
he was talking about the Junior Chamber International and what it basically is and what it represents. I started doing my homework. I got to know that people like Bill Clinton have been members of, and today, as we speak, is in a linear to the same chapter, to the same group, right?
Mhm.
So I decided I was going to join that, and when I did, we started actually running some projects, and from those projects, I also then got my entrepreneurship idea, which was me setting up an internet cafe that then ran very successfully at the town center. Um, and that's when I then got my results, but the shop continued running. Uh, and during which, I had to now put a balance between school and that shop. Then it grew to a point where I then, got an investor who came in and started working with a gentleman called Owen Ruodo, who then became my mentor. And he's an amazing gentleman, so to speak. So we ran the cafe together, and it was an amazing journey. He then took me into employment into one of his companies called Intersoft Solutions Africa. That was one of the integration companies in Zimbabwe. And we did great work across all industries. So yeah, I do see myself as an entrepreneur because that's how I started. At a very young and tender age.
That's amazing. So it has always been in you. You have always been an entrepreneur through and through. So my next question then would be, how do you define success? Considering also that there must have been a lot of challenges. You started entrepreneurship at a very tender age. And after what you alluded to earlier, having 20 years of experience, corporate experience, how would you define success? Would you define yourself as successful as yet? How would you sum that up for us?
At 30 years old, I used to call myself a very successful 30-year-old uh, boy. I'm now 42. Uh, Life is really about goals. It's about a vision that you need to infect in your mind. And the mind is very powerful, a very powerful tool, by the way. What you set in your mind becomes a reality. If I'm to walk you through my past, I wish I was sitting behind my computer right now because I would. What I've done is I've taken pictures and memories of how my life has been since 1998. And the reason I did that is because I met an amazing couple who apparently were also friends to my mentor, Owen Ruodo. This is Martin Akunawanu and his wife, Pamela. And such a gift and a blessing that I received from them because they were running Caltech's a service station in Harare, just out of Bari as you're getting into uh, as you're getting more towards waterfalls, and they taught me one thing that was great for me, which was in life, who you are today is never who you become tomorrow. But who you are today is important to you because what you do today builds your tomorrow, right? So when you leave today like there's no tomorrow, your tomorrow then apparently counts. So them telling me that gave me a lot of challenges in my life, and what I've then learned in life is it's the effort you put in that counts. So never mind whether you feel you've done something and you've put in your 100%, but you feel like you've not done it all and you've not really represented yourself the way you would have.
Mhm.
That's okay. And do you know why it's okay? Because your effort is what counts. And that's what a lot of people actually look at. They look at the effort you put in. Was your effort based on you want to be successful or not? And if you consider success and say, I want to be successful, I mean, at 40, that's how people say life begins at 40. Mine began in style. And I've got God to thank for all of this, you know. I can't say it's because I'm knowledgeable, I'm connected. I would have never had the knowledge, I would have never had the connections
Mhm.
that God not blessed me. So to everything I put, it's always God first. And what I then do is I try my I try my own level best to put everything that I do to God first. So if it was a proposal as an example that I want to actually go and submit as a tender, whatever, guess where it goes first? It goes to God. It goes in God's house. It goes to the man of God's hands. I trust the man of God to pray for my proposal because then I'm giving my all to God. And I am who I am because He lives, because Jesus lives. And that's how I'm raised. That's what I believe in. So my level of success, when I measure success, I look at the goals that you have set for yourself.
Mhm.
And when you set those goals for yourself, you then want to step back, after setting the goal, step, back, 2, 3 steps backwards and say, what is this? Is this achievable or not? Be
Mhm.
realistic with yourself. And the moment you bring in reality to where you want to go and the things you're trying to do, it's easy. It's important for you because then it helps you go back to your goals and say, okay, if I think this is not achievable, what can I take from my vision bag and put into my goal list? So don't try to do everything. Pick 10 focused goals and focus on achieving them. Because the moment you have 100 of them and you try to achieve all of them, that's how you do somewhat, but not really all. And then in sales, that's what we then call being a merely adequate. It's a merely adequate goal because then you've not really gone to where it is. So remember, if you are actually to define what a goal is, you'll realize it actually has a deadline, right? And that deadline you have to set for yourself to say, I want to achieve this by this particular date. So as much as they say life begins at 40, I will say I'm a living testimony to that. So I will measure goals based on the effort you put in to achieve that goal and stick
So
to the reality.
that's very interesting that the goals have got to be, I guess that's partly speaking into being smart. The goals have got to be realistic. Um, my funny question that I want to pose to you right now is that do you think that sometimes people are eating their seeds? You spoke earlier of you being someone who puts Christ first. Do you think that sometimes we are eating our seeds when we should actually be sowing the seeds by this I mean they are coming in as opportunities, they are
Yeah, just
coming in as mentorship, they are coming in as all these things. Do you sometimes think that it is as maybe a younger generation or even an older generation, sometimes we are digging into our seeds that we should be planting for the harvest at a certain time?
the question to your question, or rather the answer, which will be a question to your question, is very simple. Do you know what the seed is? Do you know what your seed is? Right? Um, it's important to have a relationship with God, a personal relationship that helps you try to identify what your seed could be. And seeds are everything. They are opportunities. And I've heard a lot of people talk about a lot of things that are going to be controversial to this conversation at the moment. You've probably heard people say there's corruption in government. You've probably had people say there's corruption in Africa. I tend to look at it different. I tend to think there is a system that has been put in place, and there are beliefs that you as an individual uh, follow. But then there is also a lot of talk, right? There is us talking a lot about a lot of things and missing the actual point. And while we keep talking, there are others who are actually going to do, right? So there's going to be doers, then there's going to be the wishful thinkers, then there's going to be the very vocal people that will always have an opinion over anything. If there are any ladies watching this, and especially if you are a mother, you will agree with me that when you got pregnant, even those that were not pregnant came to give you advice about how to manage the pregnancy. They gave you advice about how to. So, in other words, what I'm trying to say is everyone has an opinion over something, and it's okay to have an opinion, and it's allowed to have an opinion, but it's important to have a relationship with God to then sit back and say, God, I know there is some seed somewhere that you've given me. I've always been a firm believer that every human being is given a seed by God, and when you get that seed, it's right in your face. But here's the question: do you know what it is? Have you got the wisdom that's bold enough for you to say, "I've identified what that gift is"? Now, with gifts, with those things, comes a lot of other things that come into play. Grace, and this grace is basically, for instance, if I need to know you, precious, right? I got to know you through something else. You got to know other people through either it was other people or whatever it was, but someone is a step for you to go to or to reach the next level. But for you to get to identify what that is. So, for instance, since I knew you, right, we've had a lot of interaction, we've had a lot of communication, we've had a lot of collaboration. But here's what it is. If I did not, or if I had not identified what my seed was in getting to know you, I would have not known what to do with the seed I had and how to use that seed through you to then achieve the things I want to do, right? So seeds, yes, sometimes we chew them because we don't know that they actually are. And that's because we've not had that relationship with God where you get to say, help me identify the seed you've blessed me with. Now comes a different subject matter where people say life is not fair. And I know you've all had this. Life is not fair. And yes, it's not fair. But the reason why it's not fair is because we don't have that personal relationship with God that helps us talk to God to help us identify what our seed is. Because if you don't identify what your seed is, God is not going to put it to rest right away. He will take it from you, precious, give it to anyone else. And then that's when we then say life is not fair. It favors others, but not everyone. But that's just because the person who's now being given whatever that seed is a person who's been able to utilize their own seed. And after they utilize it, then guess what? They get another that then becomes a blessing. So they become richer. And we say life has a balance of rich and poor. But it's that relationship that you need to have to actually be able to identify, do I have a seed, and if I do, what is it? And God, now that I have the knowledge, I've identified what my seed is, bless me with knowledge, bless me with connections, bless me with the know-how of what to do with that seed. And that then becomes what then potentially becomes your future, your life.
Wow, that's very insightful. I think there's need for clarity to know what it is, what the seed really is. Yeah, thank you so much. My next question to you would be, do you believe there is some sort of pattern or formula to becoming successful or to becoming a successful entrepreneur? Or Are there habits that makes one successful? What's your contribution towards that?
Readers are leaders. Readers are leaders. Read as much
Remember,
as you can.
I remember there's a saying, I remember when we did literature in high school, that said that
Yeah.
some are born great, some achieve greatness, some have greatness thrust upon them. And it always used to fascinate me that what is that level of achieving greatness? How then do you define success, especially in that context? I think
There's a gentleman. There's a gentleman that became one of my early blessings in 2000, the year 2000. His name is Mike Lipkin. Mike Lipkin is South African who came to Zimbabwe. He's a motivational speaker. He came to Zimbabwe, had an amazing, leadership conference where he seems to believe that stardom, everyone is born of stardom. So you and I, we are born to be stars, right? But the ability to identify who you are or what your star is what we lack, right? Which speaks into what I've just said earlier. That was basically we all have seeds, but do you know what your seed is? Can you identify what your seed is? And if you're able to identify it, you having a personal relationship to be able to identify it will then give you that gift to be able to then use it. Okay. So Mike Lipkin then says, he talks about the power to persuade, where he is saying it's important for you to actually be able to persuade others around you such that you're able to move with. Okay. So um, when I look at all of this and I listen to everything I've learned as I grow, I would say leaders are readers in the sense that when you read, you gain knowledge. When you gain knowledge, you have relevance in conversations you're going to have, right? There's a gentleman who lives where I am here in Kenya, Zimbabwean, and he made it to a forum after the Treasury had announced the budget for next year, for the next financial year. And he brought in arguments that's ending on public TV where other economists were also sitting in the same forum. We end a 20-minute non-interrupted comment, okay, where he brought in his own vision and his insights around what he felt from the budget itself and where he thinks the government should have been going. All right. So he showed disconnect. He also actually said that that budget was basically guesswork. Okay. He justified what he meant by that. So why am I saying all of this? This gentleman would have never said half the things he said. He would have never ended his 20-minute comments on national television, right? Without interruption. If at all, whatever he was saying was not led with information that was important. So I always say as a leader, what you need to do is lead with data. So don't come and just give wishful thinking or talk about other things. Let the data speak for itself and follow the data. Learn from the data. Learn where it's going. Be analytical about it. Be visionary about it. Try to actually predict where you think that data is going or what the data is actually going to give you on your tomorrow. And that there basically then gives you a differentiator that no one else will ever have.
So in other words, you are saying that sometimes we have the right tables, but we are not saying relevant information. We might actually be redundant or obsolete. We don't carry the rich conversations that people are looking for or they want to hear. There is no differentiator. There is no competitive advantage. Is that what you're speaking to?
I'm speaking into exactly that, but to make relevance to it, Precious, I want you to recall how we met. then I want you to recall our first physical interaction, okay? Then I want you to recall how many other interactions have then followed since then, yeah? Which has been a balance of both. I either connect with you, you connect with me, right?
Mm.
That already means, and let me try to actually explain this in a different way. When you meet someone today and you exchange business cards, what is your intent in that exchange of business cards? I look at it from a customer relationship management point of view, where I say, now that's the beginning of managing a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
I may know I may know Philip Chiangwa, I may know Strive Masiwa, because we've met at the conference, we exchanged business cards, but that's not enough. If whatever I said when I opened my mouth, when we exchanged those cards, was relevant enough for the two, any one of the two, then guess what? I'm not the one who's going to start or initiate the conversation in a space where I am not on the same level as them, right? What then becomes a reality is if they pick up the phone and they call you to say, hey, Precious, could you come to Club X and meet us there, right? That already shows you the relevance you have, and it shows you that, you know, your first appearance made a statement, and that statement is enough for that particular person to look for you, find you, and say, hey, come and meet my other colleagues or my other friends, and let's continue talking, because the way we conversed then, I want to continue with. But the reason why I'm opening more doors for you is because I think you are worthy of it.
It would mean that you are worthy of the time. You are worthy of that seat at the table because you are bringing in relevance, you are bringing in impact. And that would explain
100%.
why that guy would get 20 minutes time on a national TV to bring about this. So would you say also that sometimes people are not prepared to have rich conversations? You know, sometimes when we fail to prepare ourselves for an opportune time so that we bring about relevance. Would you speak to that maybe in just a few minutes?
I can't say that people are not prepared for it, because then I could be lying, because I don't know who those people are and what they do, but I can speak for myself. When I'm going to have a meeting with anyone, the first thing I'm going to do is try to search for you. If it's a professional meeting, I'll search for your professional profile on LinkedIn. I will try to understand who you are as an individual, the kind of things you like, the kind of groups you follow, why you follow them, the kind of comments you're making, so that I have some level of an understanding of who you are as an individual. Right? I will go on your website, see, you know, what is your strategic direction, where are you going, how has your business been, you know, performing? Why am I doing all of this? I need to have relevance when I am in your face, because then when I talk to you and I say, oh, well, Precious, I understand that your last financial year, you faced a couple of difficulties that led you to, right? You will have that conversation knowing that I potentially have something to contribute, right? But if at all, we don't have that relevance at all, if I don't have that information and you're trying to meet me, I'm going to look at you and think and wonder, why do you even want to meet with me? So I've I've done a lot of trips that are 1 hour long, and I tend to I travel quite a lot. So at some point, I asked one gentleman who is the CEO of a very major company, and asked him why he would travel business class for a 1 hour flight. And you know what he said to me? He said, because when I changed seat in economy, everybody's flashing their card in my face. Like, so he sits in business class, and he's usually one of the last people to get on the plane, because it gives him that peace of mind that I was sitting in the business lounge, where if you were blessed to be there, then, you know, fine, we can have a conversation. But you're potentially a person that's worth the conversation with. If you're sitting in business class, we are both going to look at each other and just say, hi, how you doing? And life goes on. I'm not going to try and say, oh, I've been trying to meet you. How can can I have a business card? I'm not going to trouble the guy because he's on a flight for a different reason, right? Whatever that reason is, I should not add on stress onto his life. And that's one of the things that I think, a lot of us have always missed. That, if you don't have, in sales, there's something they call elevator sales pitch. But those that do sales training, a lot of them have misunderstood what an elevator sales pitch is. Most of us, we just think we know it. They'll just say, I've sat in a training session, a sales training session, where one person would say, if you walk into an elevator and you're so stressed, I see you up, and he asks you, how can I help you? I put my hand up and I said, Strike is not going to ask me that question. This is not that silly. He's not trying to look for how to help others. But if you are potentially going to have a statement that makes Strive look at you twice and ask you a question, then potentially ask for your business card or give you his and tell you to call him on a certain day at a certain time to set up an appointment for a certain day. Then that means you've made an impact on him. All right? You've made some impact. So, yes, a lot of us sometimes when we go out there, preparedness is important. We need to be prepared because then if you're not prepared for any conversation, then that's going to be one hell of a blow.
Oh, that's really interesting. We have one comment here. Vera is saying, okay, I'm going to share, Vera, I'll share the Facebook live stream. It's on Vessels of Virtue page. I'll share. Interesting conversations, Cedric, that you're having, that we need to make an impact, that at least one outstanding thing that will make someone remember you and say, she said this, that's very interesting. So on the basis of being an entrepreneur, what would be one of those things that you say it's outstanding, the interesting things about being an entrepreneur? Because sometimes it's such an overrated, I don't know if it's a job or what, but sometimes it's also difficult. But in your own words, in a short few minutes, what would you say is an interesting aspect of being an entrepreneur?
Entrepreneurship is not for everyone. That's the first statement of that. It's not for all of us. And you don't have to force yourself to be an entrepreneur when you don't have the entrepreneurship methodology. So but I can speak of people, and I wish I could mention names because some of them are actually leaders that all of us know. But I can speak of a certain person who used to be a head of the central bank, who, from my perspective, is a great business advisor, but would be a very poor businessman. Sometimes we're good at advisory. Sometimes we're not good at delivering the service itself, right? So when we think entrepreneurship, we should not. I think it's also become sort of somewhat of a buzzword where there is a lot of misunderstanding where now everybody just thinks because it's difficult to get a job, maybe I could be an entrepreneur. And then you try to actually just bring in some sort of an idea. Here's my challenge to people. When you become an entrepreneur or when you think of becoming an entrepreneur, the one thing you need to ask yourself first is, what problems have I identified? If I have identified certain problems, how do I plan to actually achieve? So never always come with a problem. Identify the problem but have a solution for, right? So if you have a solution to say, I've identified a problem and I do know how to achieve or how to actually address that problem, just so then it becomes a solution for the problem I've identified, then you can think of entrepreneurship. But when you think about it, don't always think about you trying to do everything on your own. One thing I've seen, especially with the young entrepreneurs that are setting up companies while they're still in university, has been one particular aspect, which has been you are all developers, You all come together, you register a company, and you have a company, so you have an idea and you want to do it. What you're forgetting is you want to commercialize it. You want it to reach to market, right? So there are other people that you need, but most of us as developers would think it's only a developer that makes sense in my company. And the actual answer and the simple answer to that is no, right? Um, look at people's dreams. Look at Bill Gates as an example, who wanted to make sure that every single home, no matter which home it was, he wanted that home to have a PC, right? If you ask me a question, has he achieved that? I'll give you a simple answer. He exceeded that, because then every home has one, right? He saw far and beyond what others were seeing. So a lot of us, we actually see only up to the end of our nose, but not beyond the nose. And that is where most of our problems then arise.
Wow, that's quite interesting. Um, thank you so much. I have one comment here from the ambassador. She's saying that very encouraging indeed. The second remark was, I love the speaker's references to practical life scenarios, makes the message concrete and relevant. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I haven't seen any question as yet, but there's remarks. I'm going to ask the next question, and that'll be, we are living in a world, you spoke about opinions earlier, that people have got different opinions and people say anything at any given time. And sometimes you're sitting there wondering, am I doing the right thing? Am I doing the wrong thing? My next question would be, how have you been able to manage diversity? Because at any given stage, sometimes you find that people have got different perceptions over things, and maybe it's clear in your head. Maybe you also need that diversity. Maybe you also need those opinions. You need to factor in all those things. How do you still remain relevant, factoring in other people's opinions or removing them completely? What do you take in, garbage out? What's the scenario there of managing oneself to being successful as an entrepreneur?
Once upon a time, Precious, we used to walk on a wall if we wanted to make a phone call. Once upon a time, we'd walk in a store, ring a bell for the shop attendants to come and address us. Once upon a time, we used to actually get into vehicles, drive or a taxi, and actually drive um, and get to a shopping mall to actually shop. Once upon a time, we used to put things in boxes and send to a post office box and deliver it elsewhere. Once upon a time, we used to actually use DSTV, so we had the satellite dish in our homes, right? All these things have changed. Disruption has happened. There are people that always say disrupt or be disrupted. Okay, what that basically means is start thinking outside the box. The biggest problem we've ever had um, in business is the fact that when you go to conferences, as an example, you're going to find that people in manufacturing are going to be sitting or gathered in a certain corner on their own. People in telecom will equally be doing, in telecoms, will be doing the same thing in their own corner. So we want to interact with people within because that's what we believe is the system, right? We now need to think far and beyond what we've ever imagined before. What that basically means is this: technology has come to disrupt broadcasting, right? So we used to have ZTV, we used to have things like SABC, etc. Um, what we now have are things like Netflix that sits somewhere on a cloud somewhere, and it's delivering services everywhere in the world. Name a country that Netflix is not in, right? We now have hotels that are now suffering because someone has come up with an Airbnb type, sort of business. So these are ideas that are coming to disrupt what is known as the norm. The problem we have is one and one only. We are comfortable in our zones and we think what used to happen is the same thing that will continue happening for us to actually realize growth. If we have that level of thinking, then that's a big problem for us as individuals. Entrepreneurship, those that are running business at the moment, what you want to actually start doing at the moment is try to see how can you eject new and young talents into your business while you also give them responsibility to let them manage even the older people in your company. Why am I saying so? I say so because then what that then derives it, or what it actually then becomes, is that those young people may potentially bring in ideas the old people just never had before. So those rapid thoughts that they used to have no longer are necessary and no longer are what could potentially be. The problem that we've always had in our businesses is when a new idea comes up, we all say, yeah, but things always have worked this way. We don't try to say yes, but, right? Or yes, and rather, not but yes, and. So that idea that is coming in, take it, develop it to a better idea altogether, right? So that for me is I guess one thing that I've seen most businesses that actually successfully have been able to adopt and do.
But I guess also speaking to that, it means that one has to have the right conversations with the right people, because it's not everyone that you are listening to that you have to consider their opinions. Am I right?
Well, I'd say yes and no. Everyone's opinion is important. It's how you filter and the things you're able to do to actually make a strategic decision to where you want to go. So remember, we spoke earlier about goals. You need to have a goal. Let's speak about Google for a moment, the search engine. There's a lot of great and amazing content in Google, but there's also a lot of junk, okay? The ability to be able to filter what you find there is based on your willingness, right? And the effort you put in to actually find the truth.
I think that's where the silver lining is, Cedric, that discerning the right information, filtering in the right information. What do I keep? What do I not keep? Because, you know, for like a long period of time, certain people can actually subscribe to some things that are not actually adding value to who they are, they should potentially become. They are listening to things that can actually become a hindrance. So that's why I'm just saying this very strongly as we try to wrap up, that it's such a silver lining. What do I listen to? Who do I listen to? When do I listen
Precious.
to?
Precious, I spoke into a conference once that had a lot of friends that come together and have breakfast together. And what this conversation was really about was, are we stock taking or we are stockpiling? I found it interesting in this sense. Since COVID started and there was a lot of Zoom meetings, a lot of Microsoft Teams meetings, a lot of online meetings, right? We started seeing a lot of people in attendance that is actually coming onto those sessions. But the question is, how relevant is that session you are joining to your job? How relevant is it to your business? How relevant is it to your goal, right? So we found that it was a vast thing to be on a meeting, on some on some Zoom session. So it became a vast thing to be known to be on that session. But the question is, are you stockpiling or are you stock taking? So by stockpiling, what we're saying is you're just attending every session that's available just because you've got time to your hands. Okay. But then what you're forgetting is you really don't have that time, because that time should be spent towards a certain and specific goal that you have. So remember, I've mentioned earlier that a goal has a deadline. Now, if you have set a deadline for yourself, the pandemic is not supposed to be an excuse for you to not achieve or end or attain what you want to do at all, right? You need to just look out and say, how do I work around it? As we speak today, while the pandemic started, today, there are people that have made billions of dollars, yeah? Why are they making billions of dollars? They found a way to be relevant around their business and with their businesses while the pandemic is on. while you and I are probably potentially sitting in our home saying, there's COVID, when let's just chill and see where it takes us and whether it goes away.
Funny enough, you are saying that the other time, I think right when we were like in the middle of COVID, one day I just decided to take a walk, like, let me just go for a walk, because I actually thought we were all locked in. To my surprise, life was happening. People were still like, there was such a buzz outside, and I was like, you can just be left behind and just be so ignorant to yourself and just be so locked up. We are not aware of what's really happening out there. I think
you know what you'll be doing during that time? And you know what you'll be doing during that time? You will be on WhatsApp and every social media platform saying, I'm an anti-vaccine activist. Let me forward messages I'm receiving. Yeah. While others are making business and they're making money. So again, comes back to our goals and what our priorities are as individuals in closing, such that then if you know what your goals are in your strategic direction is, the only thing you need to really put in is the effort. Give it your best, give it your 100%. You can never go wrong as long as you put God first.
Wow, Cedric, you just have been amazing. I'm sure I would really love to have you again and just have your input, your insights in so many things. Thank you for giving yourself so selflessly and just sharing your expertise, your wisdom, your knowledge. Greatly appreciate you all the time. You make time. What would be your parting remarks to entrepreneurs, to leaders, especially as they pivot is the buzzword. People are talking of pivot, and sometimes I'm sitting and wondering, are people really pivoting? What would be your closing remarks to people that have joined us that will still watch the session?
You are as good as your network. Others would say your network is your network. Do not know me, do not know Precious, but you're not able to actually identify how to make money through me or through Precious. In other words, the people you meet, try to convert that relationship into a meaningful outcome, right? The future out there has a very rosy outlook, but guess what? It's your hunger that matters. And your hunger is not you as a successor on your own. You take the people around you, you go with the people that can potentially actually give you that sort of access. I received a message earlier, and if I could share my screen, I would have actually shown you, but this message came from one of my connections who was asking for a link into someone that's been helping startups to realize or rather to commercialize some of the ideas they've come up with. And I did that, right? Without question, they met, they spoke, and today I got a message that basically said, that person you introduced me to is a gem, okay? And they also said to me, if there's anything that we treasure of you is you never give up to share information, even when it does not benefit you, right? So I go back to saying your network is your network. Use the connections you've made, use them wisely, use them fully, and you'll become the next richest person we have ever seen in the whole wide world without anybody noticing how you're rising.
Wow, Cedric, you are such a well of a fountain of wisdom, I must say. The 20 years really, you're just trying to pour part of it into us today. I am forever grateful. You're such a dear person to me. Thank you so much for always making time. Like I said earlier, we are learning a lot. Just before we close, there were some people that were following on the Zoom platform. If there's anyone with a question for Cedric, please just quickly unmute yourself and ask, because we've got about 4 minutes before we end the masterclass for today.
Hi, Cedric.
Hi, Lindy.
Hi, I just wanted to say thank you so much for the enlightenment today. Thank you so much for everything that you've been teaching us. We've learned, we've picked up some few things from you, and thank you so much. I appreciate it. This is wonderful.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate you. Thank you.
Okay. Oh, wait, Cedric, you said something about dishes. Are the people no longer using dishes, DSTV dishes anymore? Because I do have a
Who's
similar
ancient?
dish outside my
Who
house.
is ancient?
I heard you say
You are so
something like
ancient if
that.
you're paying $100. If you're still paying $100 to watch free content, you are blessed. You're
My
blessing
God,
someone else.
I am still paying for DSTV. I have a DSTV dish outside the house.
I've never used DSTV since
Wow.
2015, and I do not regret
Wow,
it at all.
2015?
Yeah,
Wow, okay, that's good.
and I
Yeah, well,
receive
in
all
South Africa,
content,
we are
so I
still
watch what I
using.
want to watch when I want to watch it for whatever reason.
Okay.
Remember,
Thank
Lindy,
you.
Cedric said that disrupt or be disrupted. So I guess
Yes.
we have to continuously ask that question in our endeavors, that what are we disrupting? Otherwise, we are
Yes,
becoming
yes.
irrelevant. So Cedric, once again, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you, too. I appreciate you.
We would love to have you again on the platform, on the
Yes,
session when you
It'd be
can,
nice to get
and just
you
leverage
again.
on you. And I must say, we are honored because you are automatically in our adjudication team for the awards.
Yes.
Thank you so much. You are Cedric is such a happy person. You can't help but smile when you see him. So thank you to everyone that made time to join us today. I'm grateful. To those that are still gonna watch the session, thank you so much. We appreciate you. It wouldn't be a masterclass without your support. So God bless you. Continue to be great. Continue to be awesome. Enjoy the rest of your evening and your weekend. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Good
Siyabonga.
night.
Bye,
Good night.
guys.
Siyabonga.